following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Hello, everyone. This is Rob Deininger with Comfortably Zoned Radio, and I'm here with Jack Degraw, and we're talking Yankees baseball. How you doing, Jack?
Good. How are you today, Robert?
Not too bad. Getting ready for the second half of the season to start.
Yeah, it should be exciting. There's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, and Yankees right now, I think, have the best record in the American League, or at least tied with the Astros for the best record in the American League with 57 wins.
Yeah, and I mean they got a big homestand coming up starting Friday. They got Toronto, and then they have the Astros coming in, and they got a lot of big series coming up. They got the Twins and the Red Sox, so they're jumping into the fire right away.
Yeah, and when this season started, considering all the injuries we had, did you expect the kind of first half of the season that we got?
No, I'll tell you the truth. After all the injuries, if you'd have told me, like, beginning of the season we'd have all these injuries, I would have been happy at this point just to be a few games over 500.
Yeah.
Because, who would expect all these guys to step up? And, they've just done a phenomenal job. And,
I was going to say, Tulowitzki was a guy who they brought in who I thought would be a nice compliment to have coming off the bench. And he only played five games before he's done. And I don't think we'll be seeing him for the rest of the year. No,
from what I understand, Robert, he's back home in, I don't know, Arizona. And it's still up in the air, if he's going to come back this year or, even, if he's going to retire or play next year. So I don't know what's going on with Tulowitzki.
Yeah, and I'm looking at other players like Stanton played 9 games, Bird played 10, Andujar 12, Didi's played 22 games, Judge 33 games, Hicks only 41 games. Those are some big guys, some heavy hitters to miss half the season, if not more in some cases. It's just remarkable that the Yankees have been able to do what they have. Yeah, I mean,
LeMahieu has turned out to be a super player, and Ursula at third base has been outstanding. Torres, Sanchez, I mean, the list is endless. I mean, these kids have come up and they've just done a great job. It's been a great story so far.
Yeah, and LeMahieu, he leads a team in batting average. He's got 63 RBIs, 113 hits, 21 doubles. I mean, they signed him to a 2-year deal, but you would think that at some point they're going to have to offer him an extension if he keeps playing like this.
Yeah, I believe they will. You want to keep him around for at least another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, because Andujar had a great rookie year. I was expecting big things from him, but, we lost him for the whole year. And now the future's a little uncertain. Does he become available in a trade, or do they try to keep him and find a spot for him in the infield when he does come back next year?
I think the only way they're going to get rid of Andujar is if they get some big-name pitcher. I mean, yeah. I just wouldn't give away a bat like that. He could still play a little third base, play, first base, DH, maybe, play a few games in the outfield because he's got a tremendous bat. And
yeah, he really does.
Yeah, you just don't want to give away a bat like that.
And there were reports that came out the last couple of days that the Yankees and Red Sox are interested in Zach Wheeler of the Mets, but I don't see the Mets trading Wheeler or anybody to the Yankees.
No, there's been very few trades over the years, and I don't really think you'll see it with Wheeler because, if Wheeler comes in and the Yankees win the World Series with all the bad publicity the Mets have been getting and been deserving, I'm sure they would want to see Wheeler come to the Yankees and, play great down the stretch.
I have a question for you, and this is regarding the Mets, but do you think it'd be wise if they traded DeGrom this year. I mean, considering he's 31, he's had Tommy John surgery, and he would be the premier pitcher on the market if they wanted to trade him. I mean, considering the young talent the Mets do have in Alonso and McNeil, I mean, it might be a wise idea to see if you can't get a ton of assets in return for DeGrom.
Well, it definitely be something, I think they should look into because, you could get 2 or 3 top prospects and, maybe even an established guy and a couple prospects because, the way it looks now, it's like, he's just, wasting his career there with the Mets. I mean, there comes a point where, you want to go to a winner and, you want to have something to show for all your efforts. So, I think there's definitely, they'll think about it.
And we were talking before we came on about the Yankees and some of the trade prospects. They're looking at like Bauer from the Indians, but I think with Cleveland still in the mix, they might be reluctant to trade him. But I mean, players like Stroman from Toronto, Matt Lloyd, I think his name is from Detroit. There's some names out there, but they're not like names that jump out at you. I mean, do you see the Yankees giving up some of their top prospects to acquire a pitcher like that, like a Stroman?
No, I mean, I wouldn't give up like somebody like Frazier. There's a lot of talent in the minors with the Yankees. I could see them maybe giving away like that Estrada or Wade or maybe some young pitchers. But I wouldn't just, give the house away to get to get these guys because they're pitching well this year, which is you want somebody who's doing the job right now. But I wouldn't give it away, for a guy like Frazier. Now, if you bring Bauer into the mix, then that's a possibility.
Yeah, he's pitched well in the postseason before, and he's a gamer. Yeah,
but like you say, the Indians are making a move. The American League's a lot better than I thought it was going to be at the beginning of the year. So yeah. I don't see the Indians right now trading Bauer unless they get overwhelmed.
Yeah, and I think the Indians are tied for a wild card spot right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a battle going on there. The A's are doing well. Texas is doing well. And, the Red Sox are right there. So there's a lot of there's a lot of good teams in the American League. At the beginning of the year, I didn't think so, but, they've proved me wrong so far.
Yeah, the Rangers are 3 games out of the wild card. Oakland's a game and a half. Boston's 2. And the Rays and Indians have the 2 top spots in the wild card. But there's a little group there all fighting for the wild card.
Yeah, just have to. I know there was a couple guys on Texas, some pitchers the Yankees were interested in, but I think you're going to have to wait 2 or 3 weeks to see if they're still in the race. If they'll be willing to trade anybody. So that'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, and I also, there was an article about how the Yankees were looking at, like I said, Stroman, but also a relief pitcher, Giles, for Toronto, like maybe a package for a starter and a reliever. I can definitely see them going after a reliever and throwing the bullpen. Yeah, I mean, they've got guys in AAA who have big league experience as relievers, but I think you want more of an established guy. So I think if there's a definite possibility they'll pick up a reliever also, because as it looks now, they keep talking maybe Betances will come back in late August or September. And, there's talk of Severino coming back in late August or September. And I think Montgomery's not coming back this year, so I don't know how much help you're going to get from those 3 guys if you get any help. Yeah, the last time we talked, Betances wasn't pitching, right? They shut him down. Yeah, and he's still not pitching. They say he's making progress, but I mean, Robert, with Severino and Betances, it's went from like, late June, early July, then it's late July, then it's August. When they going to come back? I mean, they come back at all. And Severino, it's a shoulder that's been bothering him, right? His pitching shoulder. Yeah, and I mean they say it's 90% healed,
and they're not going to have him onto the mound until it was 100%. Well, I mean, that's what it should be anyway. You shouldn't bring a guy like that back unless he's 100%. And maybe it just might be better to say, well, wait till February, kid, and we'll see you in spring training.
Yeah, because, I mean, last year in the second half, it looked like something was wrong. And I wonder if he was just pitching to a bad, just a bum shoulder, and he made it worse.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I think that's a possibility.
And Herman right now, he's at 76 innings. I mean, he's been brilliant when he's 10-2 with a 3.67 ERA, but those innings are starting to climb. You got to worry about him in the late stretch.
Well, I was doing a little research on him, and the most he's ever pitched in a season is 123 innings, and that was 2014. 2 years ago, he threw 109 innings. Last year, he threw 94 innings. And I believe now he's like at 80 innings. So, I mean, maybe you can stretch him out to, 135, 140. But, after there comes a point where, you're not going to have him for the playoffs at this point unless they have a 10-game lead and they can rest guys.
Yeah, because Tanaka right now is the only pitcher over 100 innings. He's got at 105, and Hap has 89.2. So they could really use another guy in there. But at least James Paxton, it looks like he's been getting better and better his last few starts. He could be huge going down the stretch.
Well, didn't he have? I believe he had a little leg problem and stuff, and maybe when he was pitching, he wasn't 100%. He wasn't 100% when he went on the mound, so maybe he was changing his mechanics, and he just was not stepping the way he always does and releasing the ball at some point. So it doesn't take much to get a pitcher off track. So maybe that was why he was having problems, because I know he's been good lately, so that's encouraging.
Yeah, and Tanaka, though, he's been pitching better lately, and he's 2-0 in his last 5 starts. Herman's, pitching well. Paxton, he's 2-2 in his last 6 starts, but those last 2 starts he's looked good. It's AJ Happ to me who's the wild card. Is he going to be the Happ we got in the second half of last season, or is he going to be the guy who continues to give up home runs and walks?
Well, you really don't know. I think Happ is a good pitcher, and I think he'll pitch well the second half. But, last year when the Yankees got it, he was just lights out. I believe he was 7-0. I don't think we're going to see anything like that. But I could see him finishing up with 12, 14 wins. So I think he'll do a good job for the Yankees. But they definitely need more pitching.
And if the Yankees do go out and make a trade, do you think they'll package Debbie Garcia in a trade? That stud pitcher we got down in the minor leagues. He just got promoted to AAA, right?
Yeah, he got promoted to AAA, and I think it would really take a lot, to get that kid. And I'll give you a few stats on him. 3 years ago, in the Dominican Summer League, he threw 48 innings. 2 years ago, he threw 60 innings. And last year, he threw 74 innings. And he's up to like 69 innings already. So, they got him in AAA now, but how many innings are they going to throw him? Are they going to give him another 20 innings? I don't see it going more than maybe 95, 100 innings. So, what I'm trying to say is I don't think you'll see him in the big leagues this year.
Yeah, now in 10 starts at AA, he had 81 strikeouts in 51 innings and only allowed 25 walks and only gave up 2 home runs. And they say he's got a fastball that he has great control of, and I guess he also has a changeup and a curve to go with it.
Yeah, he looks like the real deal so far, and the Yankees got some excellent pitching coaches in the minor leagues. They got Tim Norton with AA, and they got this Tommy Phelps he's in AAA now, and he pitched with the Marlins in 2003 when they beat the Yankees in the series. So they got some excellent coaches down there, and they deserve a lot of credit. So I think you might see one of those guys get promoted too if the Yankees don't keep Rothschild.
Yeah, and I just hope to God that I'm a big fan of Clint Frazier, and I would love for the Yankees to hold on to him, but I do have a feeling he might be a piece they use to trade. What do you think about that, trading Frazier?
Well, like I said last week, I don't want to see him get rid of Frazier, but it looks like the writing might be on the wall because he hasn't got promoted. And I think, as it looks right now, I think he might be traded.
Yeah, and if he does get traded, I mean, I can almost see them bringing back Brett Gardner next year on another 1-year deal. I mean, I much rather see Frazier playing left field next year than like Gardner.
Yeah, and I mean the outfield, problems Frazier's had. If you look, when he plays the outfield, he don't run on his toes. He runs on the balls. He runs on his heels. And when you run on your heels, your head's moving up and down, and you lose track on the ball. So any defensive problems he's had, that can be worked on.
And Paul Neal was a right fielder, but he said when he was asked to play left field, he had difficulty playing left field because he wasn't used to the way the ball would come off the bat. So, I mean, I could see how Frazier would have trouble in right field when he's not used to playing it.
Yeah, I mean, when the ball gets down, by the line and stuff, it has a curve to it. The ball just comes at you at a different angle. If you're used to playing right field and you move to left, you have trouble. I mean, really the easiest position in terms of, tracking the ball is center field because everything's right in front of you. But when you get to the corner positions and you're not used to playing them, it's just got a different curve on it. It's just a whole different thing.
And speaking of Rothschild, there was an article, and was it Newsday, about him and Sonny Gray?
Daily News, I believe. Daily News.
Daily News. And what can you tell me about that one?
Well, there's been, they were talking about Sonny Gray, and they were talking about Eovaldi, and there's been other pitchers, and they always say it's the Yankee, they can't pitch at home, they can't take the pressure. And, one of the things the article was saying is like, well, why can't they do it in New York? Why don't, Eovaldi went to Boston and they said, oh, well, he had trouble pitching in Yankee Stadium. Well, look what he did in the playoffs.
Yeah. Look
what he did in the World Series. I mean, Sonny Gray now is, he was an all-star. Granted, his record's 5-5 and, but, it just seems like, there might be, you need some new blood in New York. You need a new pitching coach. And maybe with Tommy Phelps and Tim Norton and stuff like that, you need some new blood. And, they bring these kids through the minors, and Phelps and Tim Norton, they're used to working with these kids. So, I mean, I think in some capacity, these coaches should be promoted because they have experience working with, Severino and Garcia, Herman, and all these kids. So I think, you might see a change coming this winter.
I wouldn't mind seeing that. I still remember Kenny Rogers when the Yankees got him. He looked like he was a deer in the headlights on the mound at Yankee Stadium at some points. Do you remember him pitching for them? Oh
yeah, I mean he had some definite problems in New York. I mean, and he was an outstanding pitcher. I mean, you look at his career record. He had a lot of outstanding years, and I remember the Mets brought him back. And didn't he get in the playoffs one year and walk in a winning run in some game? Or he definitely had problems in New York.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a few pitchers coming through. I remember even Jack McDowell, the pitcher from the White Sox, when he came to the Yankees. He didn't fare that well.
Yeah, I remember he pitched. that fifth game against Seattle. And that was a series, Edgar Martinez. Well, you couldn't pitch to Edgar that series. He was hitting everything.
No. Oh, God, yeah.
But I remember, that's when Mo come in and he pitched. Mariano pitched great that series. I remember Wetland. Wetland had some problems. He got a tight ass a couple of the games, and he didn't pitch well. So you had to put Jack McDowell in there to be a reliever, and it didn't end well for the Yankees.
Wasn't that Mariano's coming out party? He pitched what was it, 2 innings, I think?
He might have pitched even longer than that. I mean, he come out and he was a starter, and then they converted him to a reliever, and that's when he really, the people took notice of him was 95 in the playoffs.
Yeah, because I remember that Game 5, Don Mattingly had the hit that gave the Yankees the lead, and then they blew it at the end. And I could still see Ken Griffey Jr. sliding into home plate.
One of the things I remember also, Robert, they had the 4-2 lead, and they had the catcher Stanley up, and that year he hit 3, 4, 5 grand slams.
Yeah.
And they got behind him 3-0, and there was a meatball down the middle, and he fouled it back. He just missed it. And, there were so many what ifs that game. It's just it's still painful to talk about.
Yeah, and Mike Stanley he had some good years at the Yankees and some really big hits. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember going to Yankee Fan Fest, and they introduced him, and he got booed. But he played really well for the Yankees. I think one year he had 26, 27 homers, and another year he might have had the same thing. But that's when then they got Girardi after that, and Jorge come in, and then it was the rest is history. But Stanley was a good catcher.
Yeah, still hurts me though. Seeing the Yankees get to the playoffs in '95 and then Donnie retired, and then they win the World Series the next year.
Yeah, it's funny how things work out. If Mattingly played a little bit longer, they wouldn't have got Tino. And,
true.
Tino for 5 or 6 years he was a great player in New York, and he's one of the best first basemen the Yankees ever had. Yeah,
and when Donnie became the hitting coach, I felt somewhat good because I'm like, oh, good, at least he'll win a World Series ring as a hitting coach, as a coach. But the Yankees never won a World Series ring with him on the bench.
Yeah, it used to be different. It was painful to watch because they had all this great talent. After 2001, they did get to the series in 2003, but you had Posada, you had Jeter, you had Giambi, you had Bernie, you had Sheffield, A-Rod. Yeah. The team was loaded, and you get in a short series, and anything that can happen. That's what's great about baseball. The Yankees are built for the long run, and then you get in the playoffs, and for 5 games, you get 1 or 2 pitchers get hot. Some guy has a hot series, and your 102 team goes home goes home to play golf and shoot hoops.
Yeah, but I remember when the Yankees acquired A-Rod, they asked Don Mattingly, "What are you going to do now?" Because he was a hitting coach, and he's like, "I don't know. I guess I'll be driving the bus." Meaning we had so many good hitters on the team. My job is, it doesn't mean anything.
Well, one of the fun things in spring training, Robert, after the practices, a lot of times A-Rod and Mattingly would come out on a side field, and they'd work on their hitting. And Mattingly and A-Rod, they'd be talking to each other, and A-Rod would hit the ball with one hand, 350 feet.
Jesus.
He and then he'd get half a bat, and he would just hit the ball 300 and some. It was just incredible to watch. He was hitting off a batting tee, so he was an incredibly hard worker. That's something you can't take away from him.
And A-Rod, he was notorious for working with the young players in the Yankee system, and even on the major league team, he always helped out the young guys.
Yeah, I mean, you could see it down here. I mean, in spring training, he'd always be working with the guys, and just talking to some of the the players over the minor league complex. They used to say A-Rod was great. They would you would read these things in the paper about him, and then they said you'd sit down and talk to him, and it's like this is not the same guy you're reading about in the paper.
Yeah, and Greg Bird even said the best hitting advice he ever got was from Alex Rodriguez.
Yeah, I mean, I think A-Rod would make a good manager, or a good batting coach. He's somebody, I mean, I think he'd rather, travel the world with A-Rod. I mean, J-Lo. I can't blame him. But, but, I mean, just to have somebody like that in the organization is, it's a great thing.
And I remember when Robinson Cano got his first big contract with the Yankees, he started out slow that season, and they actually reached out to Don Mattingly, who was coaching the Dodgers at the time, if he could talk to him, because Robinson Cano, I guess, really respected Don Mattingly. And Donnie had a talk with him, and he started to hit better after that. And it just shows you these guys that, take time with the young players. They respect them. They respect the older guys that help them out.
Yeah, it's a shame. Like with Cano, I think if the Yankees had a guy like, Beltran around with Cano with his last year, Cano might have stayed with the Yankees.
Yeah.
And say, look, you stay with the Yankees, you can be the face of this franchise. Why go out to Seattle? I mean, you might make a few $1 million more, but just the prestige with the Yankees, you're going to make all that money back, And
yeah,
he went to Seattle. He's had some good seasons, and I thought he could still hit. And this year with the Mets so far has been, been a disaster. And I think another thing, if he had Beltran or CC in his ear, he wouldn't have had that, that what to get, I don't know, steroids or whatever he got involved in.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Cano would be a Yankee for life. I mean, he was a great hitter, a great lefty hitter with the Yankees. He's just so natural.
Yeah, it was incredible. I told you the story before, Robert. He used to, when he was in rehab one year, he was hurt, and he'd come down here, and he used to take batting practice and hit against Gil Patterson. He would hit like 50 pitches, and 45 of them would be home runs. It was nuts. That's the year he won the home run derby. But it was crazy watching this guy hit. It was incredible.
That's like, I'm surprised the year that he's having with the Mets. I mean, I thought he still had more left in the tank. I mean, I still think he does. I just don't know what the problem is. If it's just motivation or what.
Yeah, I mean, here's a guy. He's got a great chance to get 3,000 hits. And he's back in New York, and it's just it's been a real struggle for him this year. So I hope he turns it around.
And that's why I asked you about maybe the Mets trading DeGrom, because Zach Wheeler, if they don't trade him, is going to walk after this year. I mean, DeGrom could be the piece that gets them some assets, because they have no pitching depth whatsoever, in starting rotation or the bullpen. And nothing really down in the minors.
Yeah, I mean, I don't follow them too closely, but I know they made the big trade with Seattle. I think it was Diaz, the reliever. Yeah. They got Cano, and they thought the relievers, would be solid this year, especially the guy from Seattle. And he's been bad. He hasn't done the job at all, and it's a sad situation over there in Washington.
And the Mets traded their number 1 draft pick from a year ago, Kelenic or something like that. He's a lefty hitter he's just tearing through the Seattle's minor league system. And there was another prospect they traded too, a guy named Dunn, who's doing really well. And those two guys might be great players for years to come. I mean, as of right now, it looks like Seattle won that trade.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think you're going to see some changes. You're definitely going to see some changes with the Mets.
Yeah. Well, back to Yankees. Who are you looking forward to have a big second half of the season?
Well, I think you're going to see. Judge is going to be Judge. He's going to turn it around, and I'd like to see Hicks pick it up a little, and Didi, and they'll score a lot of runs. I mean, they got some great talent, young talent. The thing is, I'm just still interested, like we were talking before, about the pitching. Who do they pick up, before the trade deadline? So that's going to be really, I think that's the main issue, who they're going to get. Yeah, because I expect the hitting's going to be fun. I think Didi, you saw, is getting better and better every game, the more games he has under his belt. Hicks, he's only played in 41 games, and he's only batting .233, and he's got about 50 strikeouts in 41 games, so he's got to start picking it up a little bit. But Sanchez, Torres, these guys, they're producing, they're hitting well, and hopefully Luke Voigt's not out too much longer, because he's got 17 home runs and 50 RBIs. Well, from what I understand, Voigt should be back. He could be back sometime this weekend, early next week. So that's not a long-term injury. And I guess Stanton's going to be back, early August. Yeah, that's why I'm surprised. If they don't trade Frazier, I'll be surprised if they don't bring him up at some point. Because, I like Tauchman's defense, but, Frazier's bat, he can drive in some runs. And especially if Hicks and Garner don't produce at a high level, at least somewhat better than they have been, they could use that extra bat in the lineup. Yeah, I just think Frazier's down there now to work on his outfield play, but I think it's more of he might not be with the team after July 31st. So, that's another thing, is he's still going to be a Yankee. So, we'll know within 3 weeks. And do you think Sabathia is going to be a factor in the second half, or do you think injuries will continue to plague him this year? Well, it's hard to say. He's getting up there in age, and he pitches well, but you never know how long it's going to hold up. I think the best news I've heard about CeCe is he's going to stay in the organization. Hopefully, now that'd be a good guy. Maybe he could be a pitching coach, or just have him around, to work with the younger guys. As far as pitching goes, he's been effective for the most part, but you just don't know. With the injury issues, he could go down anytime. And like Tanaka, he's 5'5". He's what I expect. He gives you great outings and loses, a close game because he gives up the long ball. But he's going to be a good big game pitcher for you. And, Happ is yet to get it together. Pack, they could really use another solid starting pitcher. They really could. I just don't know who they're going to go out and get. Yeah, the only way I could see him getting a guy like Baumgartner is as it gets close to the trade deadline, and maybe the Yankees just offer the best package. But like I said, I wouldn't put Frazier in that deal because, he could bolt after 2 or 3 months. And if you don't win the World Series and you get rid of Frazier, then, the trade didn't work out for you. Now, if you trade Frazier and Baumgartner pitches you to the World Series, then it's been worth it. Yeah, and if they go after a pitcher like Bumgarner or even Scherzer, they might want not only Frazier but Esteban Florel, their center fielder down in the minor leagues, who the Yankees are really high on. Yeah, he's down here now in Tampa. He had a 5 RBI game last week. He hit a couple home runs, but he's still struggling, with the bat. So you don't know. Now might be the best time to trade him because you don't know if he's ever going to come around with the bat. And if you have trouble with pitch selection, you're never going to be the hitter, maybe he should be. So he's a definite trade bait too. Great speed though, tremendous outfielder, super athlete.
Yeah, because, I mean, the one name that I keep hearing over and over again in these trade rumors is Marcus Stroman from the Blue Jays. So it'll be interesting to see if they do something to get him, but he's never pitched in the postseason, so you really don't know what you're going to get.
No, well, the good thing is, I mean, he's pitched well this year, so if they get him now, he's pitching well. And, I guess he'll still be with the team next year. But like I say, Robert, I wouldn't give up an arm and a leg to get him. I mean, Toronto's rebuilding, so they could probably, get a couple guys from the Yankee farm system that could step in and play for them. But like I said, I wouldn't include Frazier.
Yeah, and I do like that shortstop or that infielder, Estrada for the Yankees. The little stint that he had here with them early in the year, he showed he can play.
Yeah, look, the way I feel, I think he's going to be a trade chip.
Yeah.
And that would be a good thing for his career because he'd get an opportunity to play. And with the Yankees, he's just going to be, a utility guy. He's going to be like, Tyler Wade and stuff. So I think you might see Wade and Estrada go on a trade.
Yeah. Estrada in 25 games with the Yankees this year, batted .280 with 3 home runs, 11 RBIs. He was pretty good, and he was good in the field. So, I mean, he would be a nice a piece to trade. I mean, you could probably get something in return for him and a couple others like Wade, like you said.
Yeah, well, that's the guys I think you're going to see traded. Maybe Florial. I don't think the Yankees won't give him away. But, if you want a top-flight pitcher, Estrada, Florial, and Wade, I think they're the guys you're going to see traded.
Yeah, and I was really high on Wade a couple of years ago. I mean, even when he showed up at spring training a couple of years ago, he was hitting the ball all over the field. But he's shown in stints in the major leagues that he just has trouble hitting the ball. I mean, he has great speed. He's great on the base path, great defensively, but he's shown he's had trouble consistently hitting the ball.
Well, that's a guy, Wade. He'd be better off going to another team where he could get it, every day at bats, and then you find out, what you have. He can even play the outfield a little bit. But as it is now, I mean, he's not going to get regular duty with the Yankees. So I mean, there's another guy. I mean, it's just it comes to a point where your career's going nowhere and you're better off going to another team. And that's going to happen a lot with the Yankees because you've got guys, young players and guys locked in. They're going to be there for a long time. So if you're in the minor leagues, you better hope you get traded because you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, Stanton's 2 years into a 10-year deal. Hicks just got a 7-year deal, and they're going to lock Judge up at some point. So, I mean, the outfield is pretty set for years to come. Well,
I mean, if you look at their, the AA teams and the AAA teams, they have talent down there. They got some good outfielders, guys who are at some point are going to play in the big leagues, but it's just not going to happen with the Yankees.
Nah, and I do think the Yankees do have a chance to run away with this division if they continue to play in the second half like they did in the first. But, hopefully it doesn't get too interesting down the stretch. I like to see the Yankees win the division this time and not have to play the wild card game.
No, you want to avoid the wild card at all costs because, you just flip a coin and you never know what's going to happen. Hopefully they'll have a good lead and they'll be able to rest some of their pitchers and, let the other teams beat each other's brains out going for the wild card. And then when you get to the playoffs, instead of maybe starting their first starter, they have to, start their fourth guy or something.
Yeah, because Boston, they're going to come around, and I think in the last 10 games, Boston was 6-4 or 7-3. They're playing better ball. So, Boston's going to make a charge late in the season. Yeah,
they're not going anywhere. They're going to be in there right to the end. Them and the Tampa Bay. I think there's your 2 playoff teams.
Yeah, yeah. And the Yankees haven't announced who's going to be starting the first game against Toronto, have they?
No, I haven't heard anything yet.
Yeah, I don't see anyone listed here starting. Yeah, they start 3 against Toronto, and then 4 against Tampa, 3 against Colorado for their homestand.
Well, it's good they're starting at home, and they got the Rays at home. Hopefully they can, on the homestand they can win 6-7 games and, open up some more ground against the Rays.
Yeah, and then after their homestand, they play 3 against Minnesota and 4 against Boston. So they have.
Minnesota's been a surprise team.
Yeah, I mean they've been a really big surprise team. I mean, I think the Yankees lead the majors in home runs, but the Twins I think are like right behind them.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, but they've really turned around in Minnesota. They lost 95 games last year, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it should be interesting.
Well, it's always great to follow baseball. I mean, you never know what's going to happen, so that's what makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Aaron Judge does in the second half because he only played 33 games so far this year, and he started to look better the last 10 games before the break. So I expect him to be Aaron Judge, getting on base, hitting home runs. It's amazing what they were able to do with him missing most of the first half.
Well, that kid's, him and Trout is like the face of baseball. So hopefully he can keep it up and, continue to develop and be a great player and great ambassador with the game.
I wanted to ask you about Corbin Maben. Is he still on the IL, or did they designate him for assignment?
He's, as it is right now, he'll come back sometime in early August or late July. He's pretty much on the same timetable as Stanton.
Okay, because I mean he was a nice little pickup that Cashman got. He batting over 300, 5 homers. I mean he did a nice part in 42 games for the Yankees.
Yeah, he really played. He played great ball with him, and that gave his career another 2 or 3 years, and who knows, he might get a World Series ring. It does create a problem, in the outfield because you don't know if you want to keep him or you want to keep Frazier, and so there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on. And
Urshela, I mean, defensively at third base, I mean, he's just been brilliant, and not only that, he's batting over 300 at the plate. He's getting his hits. I mean, he's been a surprise too.
Yeah, I mean, he's had time in the major leagues, but never he's never got a shot like he did this year. So, you don't know if he can continue that, but, as long as he fields well and gets some timely hits, I mean, he don't have to hit 300. He just has to be consistent and do a good job.
And I think I asked you this before, but Greg Bird, have we seen the last of Greg Bird in a Yankee uniform?
Well, from what I understand, he's down here working out. I think the best case for him would just to be, get healthy. And if you have to stay out the whole year, and come to spring training next year, even if it's not with the Yankees, because I think it's an issue of he was never 100% when he come back.
No.
And I think he's tried to come back. There was a story when Bird come to spring training, his first spring training with the Yankees, he sat down and talked to Jeter, and that's when Jeter had the ankle issue. And he asked Jeter how he felt, and Jeter says, "I feel like shit." But he said, "You don't tell the press. You don't tell the press that. You don't say that. You'd say you're fine." And I think it's the case. The guys don't want to admit that they're injured because they'll be perceived they're not gamers, they're not competitive, they're weak. But if you're injured, you can't perform. So I think the best thing for Bird would just to be come back when you're 100%, because right now you're talking about a guy's career. And I wish him the luck. I hope he stays with the Yankees and does well, but it doesn't look that way now.
Yeah, because before Sanchez exploded on the scene, Greg Bird was considered the Yankees' #1 hitting prospect over Sanchez. And to see his career just be one injury after another is unfortunate.
Yeah, when I seen Bird down here in Tampa, and I seen Judge down here, and Sanchez and Bird, and he was the best hitter. I thought he was the best hitter I ever seen down here with Tampa. I mean,
yeah.
He was just really developed as a hitter, and then he got to the big leagues and he started to pull everything, and it just hasn't turned out too well.
Yeah, get healthy and maybe a change of scenery might be the best thing for him.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Robert. Probably the best thing.
Well, this has been fun, Jack. Same time next week?
Yep. Hopefully, we'll have some more good news, and maybe we'll know who they got for the pitching staff. Because right now, everything's up in the air. You don't know what's going to happen, so that'll be interesting to see what moves forward.
If the Yankees are certain that they might have Severino back at some point in the second half, do you think that might make them hesitant to acquire a pitcher and bank on Severino coming back, or do you think they'll go out and get a pitcher regardless?
I think regardless they'll get a pitcher, because even if you get Severino back, until he gets on the mound and until he actually pitches in any games in the minor leagues, right now I'd say I wouldn't even count on him, because it's went from June, it's went to July to August, now it's September, and I mean the next I think we're going to see him in March.
Yeah, I think Wayne Unger, he called it right in the beginning of the year when that we might not see Severino all year. I think he's probably right.
Yeah, Wayne hit that right on the head. I really, as of this point, I don't think he's going to, pitch this year.
Yeah, I'd wait until he's 100%, just shut him down and pitch and let him see what happens next year.
Yeah, well, hopefully, you get tired of the what-if game, but you really don't know what's going to happen. So hopefully by next week we'll have some more definite things to talk about.
Yeah, and Montgomery's another pitcher I was high on too, so I'd like to see him back next year and healthy and ready to go.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about him. I don't think we'll see him this year. The only games he might pitch might be in the instructional league, so I don't think we'll see him in the big leagues.
All right, Jack. Next Tuesday?
Yep, sounds good, Robert. Look forward to it.
All right, you have a good week, Jack.
You too. You take care of yourself.
Have a good one, everyone.